Thank you. Thank you. Well, we're here and we're awake. I want to thank President Jordan and everyone for welcoming us here. Some of you of a certain age will remember that it was at a community college in New Hampshire that I was the first president ever to deliver a commencement address to a community college. I love these places, and I'm glad to be here. Hillary believes that these colleges work sort of the way America ought to work. They're open to everybody, they're inclusive, and you either do what you're supposed to do or you don't. You learn something or you don't. You learn something that helps you build your lives and the country's life together. So we're glad to be here. Thank you, Governor Hassan, for your support. You've been wonderful. Senator Betty Lasky, thank you. I want to thank the leaders of our two great teachers' organizations, Lily Escalson-Garcia, the president of the NEA, Randy Weingarten, the president of the AFT. Thank you for being here. Our organizer here, Christy Gittlemal, thank you. Ellen Malcolm, thank you. And somebody told me it's her birthday, so happy birthday. Look, I will be very brief and to the point. We are having a big debate in America full of anger, anxiety, and apprehension because it takes a long time to get over the crash that happened 8 years ago, and because the country, with the exception of the 1990s, has been growing more unequal for a very long time. And we are now in a position to actually do something about it. So the question is, what are we going to do and who's the best person to do it? And finally, in the last few days in Iowa, we really began to have a debate about what are the honest differences, what are the likely consequences, who's the best to do it. Hillary can talk about all that. What I want you to know is that one of the things I learned about being president that comes instinctively to her is that there are the great days. You know, we're going to have some great days when she signs a bill to give us 100% coverage in the health care law and deal with some of these problems. We're going to have some great days. When you sign that legislation to make America the world's leading country in creating a new economy based on clean energy jobs and modernized infrastructure, and when we make college affordable for everybody and debt manageable and everybody gets to pay back as a small fixed percentage of your income. There'll be some great days. There'll be some tough days where something happens terrible to somebody in America or around the world. And then there are all the other days. In other words, the life of a president is like your life. There have been great days, there have been tough days, then there are all the other days. You got to show up every day, every single day, and make something good happen. I believe she's the best qualified person for this moment in history that I've ever had a chance to vote for. And I believe it. I believe it not because she's had more experience trying to protect the security of Americans and advance our values and our interests around the world than everybody else still running in both parties put together, not just because she's had a lifetime of working to deal with the challenges of working families and children and give women and girls equal opportunities, but because she's the best change maker I've ever known. Now, being a change maker is different from holding a certain public office. It means in or out of office, you get up every day and figure out how to make something good happen. I thought one of the most revealing things to me, based on my experience having done the job, in the whole series of debates we've had, was the question that came up at the end of the last debate in Charleston, South Carolina, where the moderator surprised them all and said, is there anything we haven't discussed you think we should? And he called on Hillary first. First, let me say I have no criticism of what Senator Sanders or Governor O'Malley said. It made me proud to be a Democrat. They were all outraged about what was happening to those people and the leaded water and what could happen to the babies. But remember what they said. Hillary said, when this happened, I was upset. And I sent somebody, I called the mayor, can I send somebody to see you, figure out what I can do? And someone goes down there and says, yeah. The mayor says, I asked for this much money, they gave me 10% of it, I need the rest. Here's why, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, what can I do? You can go on television, don't talk about the campaign, don't talk about anything else, tell them what's happened to us and why it costs this much money to fix the problem. She did it, they got the money. Now, I don't know if that's the only reason they got the money, because all over America there was this, oh my God, movement, as people learn what happens to pregnant women with little babies if they get too much lead. Their children can be born with shrunken brains, and it can change everything. And even if the children look healthy, they can be damaged. But the point is, her immediate instinct was, what can I do to make it better? The other guys gave good answers. Her opponent said what the governor did was terrible and he should resign, and maybe he should. But her instinct was, what can I do right now to make it better? And so, look, next month will mark the 45th year since I met Hillary. When I met her, I was amazed at how she sort of zeroed in on things and make something good happen. Whether it was legal services in law school or working for the Children's Defense Fund to end tax breaks for segregated academies in the South, or get African American teenagers out of prisons where they were being held for years as adults, or bringing our state its very first pre-kindergarten program all the way from Israel to teach parents, even who couldn't read, to be their kids' first teachers, which is now all over the country just because she did it, and there are untold numbers of young people now, young adults who have better futures. Or redoing the education standards in our state at a time when a national expert said we had the worst schools in America. And then I came to New Hampshire and asked you to vote for me, and I said, one reason you ought to vote for me is this guy who said we had the worst schools in America said we now have one of the 2 most improved school systems in America. She did that. She'd never been elected to anything when she did this stuff. She just made something good happen. So we got to the Washington, D.C., which is kind of like La La Land, you know. Basically, a good rule of thumb in American politics is the further away you are from the nearest community colleges, the crazier politics gets. I mean, look, you really do work the way America should. What's the problem? What's the opportunity? Seize the opportunity, solve the problem, do it together, get the show on the road, go, 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 go. That's what America needs. And you need the best change maker. Somebody who didn't give up when we couldn't pass health care because we didn't have 60 votes and got the children's health insurance program. Someone who got the Republican leader of the House, who was my staunchest opponent, to work with her to rewrite the adoption law so we can move people out of foster care into permanent adoptive homes before it was too late. Someone who worked in the Senate across party lines to help rebuild New York after 9/11, who, to guarantee the National Guardsmen and Reservists from New Hampshire who were sent to Afghanistan and Iraq, the same health care military veterans got when they came home. Someone who worked with John McCain on traumatic brain injuries and helping people with post-traumatic stress syndrome. Someone who is Secretary of State, made the only thing that survives with Russia, the New START Treaty. It's a good thing in a dangerous world to have a smaller risk of nuclear war. took 67 votes in the Senate. And on and on and on. The point is, you put her anywhere in any job, and she will find a way to do more good in that job than anybody else in the same job. So, you have to decide who's got the right position on the issues and who's the right person to make change. All I know is, at the end of the day, when I walked out of the White House, the only thing that mattered to me were people better off when I quit than when I started, did children have a brighter future, and where we're coming together. If you want to say yes to that, I urge you, New Hampshire, I urge you, send a clear message to America and support the best change maker I ever met, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
It is great to be here with all of you, and I am so thrilled that I'm coming to New Hampshire after winning Iowa. I can tell you, I've won and I've lost there. It's a lot better to win, and it's also a great tribute to the organization and my supporters there. And we're bringing all that energy, all that excitement, all that determination right here to New Hampshire, where we're going to work hard up until the primary next week. I am so grateful for all of you, every single one of you who are here this morning to kick off this last phase of the primary campaign here at New Hampshire. As you know, my husband and I are pretty fond of this state. We have made friends starting back, oh my gosh, in 1991, who have been with us year after year. They are people we care about, people we know are making a difference in this state. I just got to give your governor a big hug as she was heading out the door, and I am absolutely thrilled about her campaign because we need Maggie Hassan in the United States Senate. Now, this is an exciting week for a lot of reasons. It is, after all, the process by which we choose who each party will nominate for the most important job in our country, some say even in the world. And it is up to New Hampshire voters to weigh in the first primary in the nation. And what I'm excited about is I think in the last few weeks, we have seen the arrival at the right time in this campaign for you to understand what the contest of ideas really is between me and my esteemed opponent, Senator Sanders. I am excited by that because that's the best way for you to make up your minds. What do we stand for? What do we think needs to be done? How do we believe we can do it together? How do we make a real difference in people's lives? How do we make sure this country that we care so deeply about stays true to its values, keeps providing opportunity, begins to go after the inequality, and not just economic inequality. We have to deal with racial inequality, with gender inequality, with sexual orientation inequality, with the kind of poverty of spirit that has too much influence over the lives of too many of our fellow Americans. So I come to you with a lifetime of service and advocacy and of getting results. And I am grateful that Bill was out here because he does know a little bit about the job we are competing for. And I have to confess, not just because, yes, we did meet 45 years ago. I always surprised when I say that. But because he produced results for the American people. And he got the opportunity to do that because of the people in New Hampshire. So I want to make this case to you, and I want to ask you during these next days to go out there, talk to your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues about what is at stake. It could not be more stark between what I offer and what the Republicans offer, between my record of results and their efforts to turn the clock back on all the progress that we have made in America. So let me just run through some of the basics, because one of the things I love about New Hampshire voters is you all sift through it, you give it the once-over, you make up your minds about what makes sense, you take a hard look about what people are proposing, you ask yourselves, does this just sound good on paper or can this get done? And who's most likely to be able to deliver what you need for yourself and your families? I think the key issue has to be and must be the economy. That is something that we Democrats agree on. You know, we believe that we've got to get the economy producing more good-paying jobs and raising incomes again, for everybody willing to work hard, do their part to get ahead and stay ahead. And I think it's fair to point out that the facts are on our side. The Democratic Party produces presidents who improve the economy and give more Americans a chance to live up to their dreams. That is a convenient argument, but it has the benefit of being true. I'm not just standing here telling you this because I'm back in New Hampshire. We know our economy does better with a Democrat in the White House. And we know that our last two Democratic presidents were pretty darn effective in taking what the Republicans handed off to them, turning it around, and putting us back on the right track. That is exactly what I will do. Just a little, a little brief history period here, because I do think it matters what we've accomplished in the past. That's how you can judge us. That's how our party can be judged. And when my husband became president, he inherited a recession. He inherited the quadrupling of our national debt and a deficit. And when he got to Washington, he was asked, so what do you uniquely bring to Washington? And he thought for a minute, and he said, well, I guess arithmetic, because we're going to make it add up for the American people. And that's what happened. After 8 years, 23 million new jobs. But most importantly, and this is what I want you to hear, because this is what we were able to accomplish and must do again. Incomes went up for everyone. Everyone. Not just those at the top. Middle-class families, working people, and most importantly to me, because of my long advocacy on behalf of kids, we lifted more people out of poverty in those 8 years than at any other recent time in American history. That matters. And we ended up with a balanced budget and a surplus. Now, I think that is not only a good record for Bill Clinton, that's a good record for the Democratic Party and what we stand for and what we can do together. Now, I wish this were a story that continued to have happy chapters to it. But along came the Republicans again. And we must never, ever let anybody in New Hampshire forget that trickle-down economics was a failure then, and it would be a failure tomorrow. And every single one of those Republicans, that's the same snake oil that they're peddling today. So in came a Republican president. And don't ever forget, close elections matter. You either win or you lose. It's a little bit different when you get selected by the Supreme Court, but nevertheless, George W. Bush became president and immediately began to dismantle everything that had been built. Cut taxes on the wealthy, get out of the way of corporations, take your eyes off of Wall Street, the mortgage markets, and we know what happened because we lived through it. And in came a new, young, dynamic, Democratic president. There was so much that he had fought for and advocated for during the campaign. The first thing he gets met with is we're losing 800,000 jobs a month, thanks to the failed policies of the other party. So I remember talking to the president-elect when he asked me to come to Chicago right after the election, and he wanted to ask me to be Secretary of State, but before we got to that, he just said it's so much worse than they told us, and it was. We ended up losing 9 million jobs. People wonder, why are folks in America upset? Why are we angry? Why are we frustrated? 9 million jobs. Multiply that over by family members. That's a lot of Americans. 5 million homes lost, the most important investment you ever make. Ripped away because of the mortgage finagling that went on. And then $13 trillion in family wealth. People build it up. They want to pass it on. They want to be secure in their retirement. $13 trillion wiped away. And that's what President Obama inherited. And I don't think he gets the credit he deserves for digging us out of the ditch that we found ourselves in. Now, I know there are those who said, oh, he should have done more, he should have gone harder, he should have gone farther. I watched it up close. I was in that cabinet. I watched him save the auto industry and the millions of jobs that went with it. I watched him push through the toughest regulations on Wall Street since the 1930s. And I watched him achieve the Affordable Care Act to make sure that Americans have access to quality, affordable care. Now, where I come from, that was a lot of good work, my friends. That was an incredible accomplishment. But we have more to do. Let's not let the Republicans cast a pall of collective amnesia over America. Honestly, I listened to them talk about cutting taxes on the wealthy. In fact, one of them said recently, the problem in 2008 was not too little regulation on Wall Street, it was too much regulation on Wall Street. I listened to them. I watched them voting to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Make no mistake, we are in a fight to the finish about whether or not we're going to build on the progress we have made or watch it get ripped away. And New Hampshire is going to have to decide who can go toe-to-toe with the Republicans to make sure they don't wreck us again. But that's not enough either. It's not enough just to tell you what I'm against. That's the easy part of politics. We're all against bad stuff, however we define it. There's a lot of stuff to be against that's bad. I want you to know what I'm for. I want you to know what I will do. Because Bill's right. I don't know whether it's my responsibility gene or whatever it is. But I wake up every day trying to figure out, can I just help one person? Maybe I can help 10. Maybe I can help 100. Because I am blessed. I know that. And I am grateful. But I also feel compelled to do everything I can every single day to help as many people as possible. And that's what I want to do as your president. Tell you. Number one, job one, more good jobs. With rising incomes, the American people deserve a raise and they haven't had one. Now what are we going to do? Well, I think there's some things the government can and should do. We need more infrastructure jobs, our roads, our bridges, our ports, our airports, our rail systems. We could put millions of people to work, good jobs that can't be exported. And we can make our economy more competitive. And I am looking forward to coming up with some ideas that both work with Congress and go around Congress, like a national infrastructure bank, where we've got public and private dollars going in to make us a more competitive economy, and not just with the physical infrastructure, virtual infrastructure. It's time we finally got high-speed, affordable broadband internet coverage to every single part of this country. That's an economic issue. And I'll tell you, I'm one of these people who believes we can have a manufacturing base in America. I am not going to give up on making things because there's too many good jobs and too many opportunities. I've been to community colleges like this one in New Hampshire. I know what you're doing to help prepare people who are young and maybe not so young for the jobs of the future. And I want to be a good partner for you to do that. And I want to change the tax code, which still gives incentives to businesses to move jobs overseas, build factories overseas, instead of helping us upgrade our manufacturing, bring new advanced manufacturing right here to New Hampshire. I've had the best time visiting so many places in this state, but you know, here in Nashua, I went to W.H. Bagshaw, a venerable manufacturing company, been around more than 100 years, right, Billy? I think it's been here forever. In addition to literally machinery they had 100 years ago, they have some of the most advanced computerized machinery because they're keeping up with the times, and they got some help during that Great Recession because they needed it. And the dozens of people working there and their families are so grateful that they did. We got to do more of that. We need good work that gives people the dignity, not just the income, as important as that is, as essential as that is, the dignity of feeling they're contributing to our society. I want more people to believe, once again, they're valued because of what they can do for themselves and others. And then the fastest way, the best way to get new jobs is to finally combat climate change by really going after clean, renewable energy. I'm always just a little amused when the Republicans are asked, as they are, what they think of climate change. And then they say, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. You've heard that, right? I mean, I've gone across the country trying to answer that question for them. I've said, you know, you can remedy this by going to talk to a scientist. You can go to the university. You could come to the community college. You could go to a lot of high schools and talk to science teachers, and they will explain climate change to you and what we should be doing. Now, I have concluded that not all of them are that ignorant. I have concluded they are doing what the Koch brothers tell them to do. And that's bad enough to be in that kind of denial, but they're missing a great opportunity to grow our economy. Some nation is going to be the 21st century clean energy superpower. I think it's either going to be China, Germany, or us, and I intend it to be us. And I'm going to do everything as I can as your president to make that happen. And I've set some big goals. I've said, look, we're going to deploy 500 million more solar panels by the end of my first term and enough clean energy to power every home by the end of my second term. And I was very proud to be endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters because they know what we can do and what we must do. But I'm most excited by seeing us begin to really set some big goals in America, have some positive energy around what we can do with energy, and let young people feel that they have a future to help pave the way. That's what I want to see. More STEM in schools, more young men and women working as engineers, more young people understanding this is the challenge of our time. And if we put our minds to it, we can do this. We can overcome the denial. We can overcome the special interests. We can overcome the oil lobby. We can do this. But we need leadership that understands it, makes it a priority, and actually accomplishes it. And let me say, I want to be, as I've said here many times, said it at Smutty Nose one day, For those of you not from New Hampshire, that's the name of a beer company. Pretty good, too. I said, I want to be the small business president because that's where most of the jobs still come from. And we need to do more to support small businesses, get them the credit they need to get them started and get them growing. Now, the two fastest ways to raise incomes are raise the minimum wage, which is too low. People can't make a good living. They can't get themselves out of poverty. And finally, guarantee equal pay for women's work. And I am so adamant about this, and I'm thrilled that we have some of the great women leaders of our time here with us today. We have Stephanie Shriak from Emily's List. We have Ellen Malcolm, who started Emily's List. We've got Ellie Smeal from the Majority. We've got a great group of women leaders who understand what's at stake for women in this election. And I feel that it's a little bit awkward to be stating the obvious all the time. If you do the work, you should get the pay. Lily Ledbetter just endorsed me, you know, the woman who fought for equal pay because she worked her way up in a factory in Alabama. She became the first woman supervisor, a big deal. She worked just as hard, got just as good evaluations, and then one day by accident, she discovered she'd never been paid the same as her fellow male supervisors. This is not some urban legend, my friends. This is happening every day across this state and America. It's bad for women because it's unfair fundamentally. It's bad for their families because it cuts into family incomes, and it's bad for the economy. We are a consumption economy. We need more money in people's pockets to make sure that we're building a better future of good results economically. So, everything I've just told you, the Republicans don't agree with. They don't agree with infrastructure, manufacturing. They don't care about raising the minimum wage or equal pay. It's a big difference. It's something, these are things I've worked on, cared about for years. And I know how essential they are to making sure that every American has a fair shot in the race of life, has a fair chance to get that promise of America made real. And one of the other big issues that we have to think hard about this week is health care. And here's where I stand. You know, before it was called Obamacare, it was called Hillary Care, right? And that's because, you know, I tried really hard back in '93 and '94 to get us quality, affordable health care, to get us on the path to universal coverage. Didn't work. Insurance companies, drug companies, they beat us. They spent millions of dollars. They got it done. That was disappointing because I knew so many people who were so desperate to have health care who didn't have it. I met a lot of those people in New Hampshire back in '92, didn't I, Alice? Bill and I met people who were just desperate. They had pre-existing conditions, couldn't get insurance, had prescription drug costs they couldn't afford. They'd get laid off. They'd lose their insurance. They were young, just starting off. They couldn't afford it, didn't get it. Stories have stuck with me so powerfully. And after we were not successful, I said, look, we got to do something, especially for all the families with sick kids that I met here all those years ago. So I got to worked with Democrats and Republicans to get the Children's Health Insurance Program, which now insures 8 million kids. And I I meet these families here in New Hampshire. I meet them because they come up and they thank me. And I say, don't thank me. This is what a country is supposed to do for people who need the help that you needed all those years ago. Don't thank me. But you can understand why I was so thrilled when President Obama passed and signed the Affordable Care Act. We as Democrats, we have been fighting to get on the path to universal health care coverage since Harry Truman. We finally have the base that will enable us to get there. But there are very different responses. On the one hand, the Republicans, they've voted to repeal it 62 times. They sent a repeal to the president's desk. Thank goodness he was there. He vetoed it. But a Republican president and a Republican Congress will repeal the Affordable Care Act as fast as they possibly can, if that were to happen. Thank you. Thank you. But I want you to know, I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied with what we've got. We've got to improve it. We've got to get out-of-pocket costs down. Co-pays, deductibles. We can't let that interfere with people being able to exercise their right to health care. We've got to make sure the insurance companies, which is exactly what the Republicans would do, don't take it over again, tell you you're out of luck with a pre-existing condition. We've got to keep young people on their parents' policies until they're 26, which has been such a lifesaver for them. So I've laid out an agenda about how we go from where we are now, 90% coverage, the highest we've ever had, right? 90% coverage to 100. Senator Sanders shares my goal of 100% universal coverage, but he has a very different approach. He wants us to start over. He wants us to begin another contentious national debate about what to do with health care. And I just fundamentally disagree. I don't want us to go back into gridlock. I want us to be curing people's diseases, helping get their prescription drug costs down. People can't wait for another debate. And besides, I think it's a lot easier to get from 90% to 100% than from 0 to 100%. So I will continue to defend the Affordable Care Act, but to tell you what we have to do differently. And one area in particular is getting prescription drug costs down, because what we're facing today, we are facing skyrocketing drug costs, and there are a number of reasons for it. But I'll tell you, one of the reasons is because of a gimmick that has nothing to do with big banks on Wall Street, but it has to do with speculators and greed, and that is the purchase of small drug companies taken over by speculators who then get control of a drug that keeps people alive and increases the price as high as they possibly can. I have met people across America who have told me this. I'll give you just a quick story from Iowa last weekend. I was in Clinton, Iowa, and a woman came to see me. She said, I just have to ask you what can be done about this. And she said to me, I've been taking the same drug, 10 shots a month since 1988. Started off at $20 a shot. I was able to handle that, went on for years, and then last month, I go to the pharmacist to fill my prescription. The pharmacist says, it's going to cost you more than $14,000. I said, what? I said, show me that paper. She hands me this paper, and I look at it, and I said, okay, I get it. The drug company that was making that drug for years, there was no research money going into it anymore. There were no new discoveries. This was a tried and true drug, been on the shelves, helping people, had been bought by a company called Valiant Pharmaceuticals. And they proceeded to do whatever they wanted with the price. Now, I think what they're doing is predatory pricing. I will have the Justice Department and every tool at my disposal to go after these companies that are doing this to people who need the help. And we've got to be smart about how we prevent these abuses, but we also have to be smart about how we get lower prices. That's why we must finally give Medicare the right to negotiate for lower drug prices with the drug companies. Now, I got to tell you, sometimes I know some people think these are just details, that I should just fly at 30,000 feet and just say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, thank you very much. That is not how I believe you should select a president. I want you to know what I want to do for you because I want you to hold me accountable for actually delivering for you. And I'll tell you something else. I think there is a lot of good work we can do in education, and I am proud to have teachers and educators. Thank you, NEA. Thank you, AFT. Thank you, New Hampshire. Because I do believe that relationship with the teacher is so critical to a child's learning. And I think it's time we started supporting teachers, not scapegoating teachers in America. But there are some things we need to do that will actually help more kids succeed, starting with early childhood education and universal pre-kindergarten. This is a cause for me because I know what a difference it makes, and now we've got all this brain research which makes it so clear 80% of your brain is physically formed by the age of 3. We've got to do more. As Bill said, I found a program in Israel. I brought it to Arkansas to help teach parents to be their child's first teachers. I want to do whatever I can because we have too many little kids who are going into school not prepared to learn, not able to take advantage of what their teachers have to offer, and need so much help. And then we got to make college affordable again, something that we haven't done. So I put out a program for debt-free tuition at any public college or university, and I want to follow up on President Obama's plan to make community college free so we get more young people able to go to community college. And we are going to take on the student debt problem. We're going to help you refinance your debt, save thousands of dollars, and we're going to help you move into repaying it based on your income, not a fixed interest rate, which is what is suppressing the earnings and opportunities of young people. There's a lot to do here at home, but let's not forget we have a lot to do in the world, too. This is a very complicated world. I know that. I was privileged to be that Secretary of State in that first term of President Obama's, and I spent a lot of hours in the Situation Room working over problems that they don't get to that room in the White House unless they're hard. If it's not hard, somebody else handles it on the way up. But once it gets there and you're sitting there with the Secretary of Defense, with the CIA director, with the president, the vice president, a national security advisor, you know you're facing some hard choices. And you got to figure out, pooling your experience and your understanding, what will keep America safe, what will advance our values and our interests, what will help our friends and allies and partners around the world. I am absolutely committed to doing everything I can to deal with the main challenges we face, but also to seize the opportunities in this world. I've laid out a comprehensive approach for dealing with ISIS and defeating it because I take the threat of terrorism seriously. I was a senator from New York on 9/11. You saw it in the film. You know what we went through. Got some folks who understand that. So I will spare no effort to keep America safe, to keep our country safe, to protect American families. But I want to do it in a smart way that produces the kind of world that we're looking for. So yes, I want to go after them over there. I want to have an intensive American-led coalition. to go after their leadership, their infrastructure, to support the Arab and Kurdish forces on the ground that are doing the fighting. But I will not send American combat troops to Iraq or Syria because I do not believe that that is part of a smart strategy. And I will certainly work to cut off the flow of foreign funds and foreign fighters, and we do have to take them online. And we're going to need a lot of smart young people and our great technology companies and others to help us understand how to get underneath their propaganda, their celebration of violence, their radicalization of people in Europe, the United States, and elsewhere. But I want to say something serious, too, about how we keep ourselves safe here. After 9/11, we had a public information program in New York. It was called, if you see something suspicious, you hear something suspicious, report it. And we had a unified front. We reached out to every community. Law enforcement did. Leadership did. Said, hey, call the police, call the FBI, call 911, anything you see or hear. And we saw that attacks were foiled and prevented. And New York, thankfully, despite constant intelligence about potential new attacks, has been safe. I mention this because when you have leading candidates on the Republican side who insult American Muslims, who insult Muslim nations and the religion of Islam, that's not only offensive and shameful, that's dangerous. That is exactly playing into the hands of the terrorists. It isolates and marginalizes people that we want to be part of our first line of defense. That's why I've been speaking out against it everywhere I go, big groups and small, and will continue to do so, because it also affects our ability to put together a coalition that includes Muslim nations to go after the terrorists over there. I know how hard it is to put together a coalition. I did it. I put together the coalition that imposed sanctions on Iran, enforced those sanctions, drove them to the negotiating table, led to the agreement to put a lid on their nuclear weapons program. And you don't go to nations and ask them to be part of your coalition after you've insulted their religion. That is not the way it works in the real world. And so we have to be focused on those threats that exist, but to go after them in a way that brings our country together, brings the world together. This is not a clash between civilizations. This is a clash between barbarity and civilization. And that's how we have to look at it. And finally, let me just say this. I have spent a lot of my life fighting to expand the circle of opportunity and the rights of people. And when I listen to the Republicans, it chills me. They are against so many of the advances we've made in lifting up the dignity of every person. I want you to know where I stand. I will fight for a woman's right to make her own decisions. I will fight against defunding Planned Parenthood here and everywhere. I will defend marriage equality and fight to end discrimination against the LGBT community. I will fight for voting rights and to overturn Citizens United. I will fight for comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. I will fight to make sure we get criminal justice reform and end the era of mass incarceration. I will defend Social Security against privatization, which is still the goal of the Republican Party. I will defend the Veterans Administration, but improve it. But I'm not going to let the Republicans privatize it and take away the benefits and services that our veterans have earned. And I will continue to fight for common sense gun safety measures against the gun lobby. So, my friends, this is where I stand. This is where I will fight, but I can't do it without you. This is going to be a great week of campaigning. Tomorrow night, we have a forum on CNN. The next night, we have a debate. And I am looking so forward to engaging in the contest of ideas, because on our side, we disagree about ideas. We disagree about how to translate them into positive results for people. On their side, it's insults. It's not the kind of debate that you want to hear when you're trying to pick who should be the next president and commander-in-chief. So, New Hampshire, come with me this week. Make this journey with me. Stand up for me. Fight for me. And when we win, I will stand up and fight for you every single day. Thank you, and God bless you.